All right. Well, I want to thank everyone for attending our presentation on SSDI and / dual eligibility for with Texas disability rights. Our presenter today is Jonathan Delarosa, and he is an advocate with the Disability Rights of Texas. He serves on the Protection and Advocacy for Beneficiaries, which is the PABSS program that Texas Disability Rights of Texas has. This presentation will discuss how PABSS can serve the clients who are currently on Social Security disability, and how returning to work can affect their benefits. And I believe he's got even a few extra little goodies in there for us. So with that being said, Jonathan, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Okay, sounds good. As mentioned, I am Jonathan Delarosa. I'm with Disability Rights Texas PABSS program. So for those of you who weren't here yesterday we discussed SSI along with the Ticket to Work program and things that are beneficial to people who are looking for work, who need little resources to help them get to work, particularly in a job of their choosing. So some of that builds onto the second one, but since I know there are a couple of new people, I'll try to clue you all in, where there might be some gaps so that maximum understanding can be achieved, which is really important. So yesterday I mentioned that the SSI benefit was not as complicated as this one, or at least I don't feel it's as complicated as this one. This one is a little more complicated because timing kind of matters more. It's not so much math complicated as much as it is like you need to know where you are and what work incentives you have. And I think it'll make a little more sense as I get into it. So I'm just going to hop right in. So SSDI, Social Security Disability Insurance, is a program designed to partially replace your earnings lost due to the retirement, disability, or death of an insured person. So this is funded by FICA taxes. It's not based on your income, savings, living arrangement. It's based on essentially what you've paid into it, just like it is with regular Social Security. And it's unique to each worker. So last year, the average SSDI payment was $1,258. Now, here's the thing about this program that makes it particularly interesting compared to the other program. Under SSI, your resources maximum is $2,000. With SSDI, if you don't have Medicaid or SSI or anything else, you can have as much money in the bank as you want. So to put that in perspective, if Oprah was no longer working, like she wasn't getting any income from any place whatsoever, but she's of course got millions of dollars in the bank, she could apply for SSDI if she wanted to, if there is some disability she had that prevented her from being able to work. So yeah, so for the people who only have this program, if you need to save money in your bank account, you don't have Medicaid, then you can, and you can save as much as you'd like. So this is a little bit of a table of contents, if you will, for some of the things we'll talk about, and we'll get into some of that too. But I'm just going to hop right into it. Trial work period. So when you get SSDI and you haven't been working for a bit and you decide, okay, I want to go back into the workforce. Social Security grants you what's called a trial work period, which is 9 months in a rolling 60-month period. So what does that mean? That means, let's say you start working and you work 2 months and you're like, I'm not feeling this. And you don't work for another 5 years, then those months go away. So you have to use 9 months in a rolling 60-month period for you to have used up your trial work period. In this period, though, you can make as much as you want without any effect to your benefits at all. When you earn $940 in a month, then you've used one of your trial work months. But that's just saying you've used it. You can still make as much as you want. let's say you get some really high paying job. Once they make that decision to go to work, let's say you take a job that's worth $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 a year, that you would at least get your paycheck for 9 months while you're there, your SSDI check, which can be really helpful. So now you only get one of these periods. Once you've used up your trial work period, it's gone. It doesn't come back in 5 years. It doesn't do any of that. You have one trial work period. The way they just calculate how you've used it is that you have to use 9 months in this rolling 60-month period. So after you've used all of those trial work months, you enter what's called the extended period of eligibility. And this is a 36-month consecutive period. So each month is taken into account, and what Social Security cares about now is if you are making above substantial gainful activity. Basically, this number is what Social Security says once you make this amount, you no longer need disability. Now, the amounts are different from people who are blind over people who are not. So if you are not blind, the maximum you can make is $1,310. Whereas if you are blind, sorry, I got that mixed up. $1,310 if you're not blind, $2,190 if you're blind. Give me just a second. I'm going to change that real quick because I think that's really important. So give me just a minute. I realized that was incorrect because that was a typo. So there we go. There. Now I'm going to reshare my screen. Sorry about that. There we go. Okay. So yes, $1,310 if you're not blind, $2,190 if you are. So what Social Security says is that if you make that much money, you don't need to have your Social Security check. So if you're working above that, you no longer get your check for that month. And if you work below it, then you do. So if you find yourself in a month where you've made $1,500, then you wouldn't get it for that month. But if you make $1,200 the next month, you would. So that's why they call it the extended period of eligibility, because it's a three-year, 36-month consecutive period where if you do need your check, you have it. But if you don't, then you do not get it. And we'll talk about ways to keep your earnings underneath that level if that's something you need. So now, with that said, you do have a grace period the very first time that you go above that level. So first time you work above SGA in this extended period of eligibility, you will get your cash benefit for that month in the following 2 consecutive months, regardless of how much you work. So again, let's say you are you've had this really nice, high paying job and you've had it for 9 months and you're approaching month 10 and you're still working there, and that's great. But you go over, of course, that SGA, then you will still get your SSDI check for that month and the following 2 months. So overall, like if you're working a really high paying job, you could have this benefit for up to a year while you're working, which can be really advantageous for you if you're trying to save some money to help make work easier, or if there's something else you're trying to save for. Now, with that said, though, you only get one of these. So once you go over that, then we're going back to this extended period of eligibility. You work above SGA, you don't get your cash benefit. And so once you've used those cessation periods, with that cessation period and the grace period, after that, next time you work over, you don't get it for that month, but you will get it the months you don't work over SGA for 36 months. All right, do I have any questions? Okay, cool. So now we're going to go back here. So hold on a minute. I'll get that a bit. Sorry about that. My phone was going off. But after you use those 36 months and you go over SGA again, that is where your benefits terminate. You will lose your cash benefit. You will keep your Medicare for a minimum of 93 months once that trial work period is over. So that means, that's still a significant amount of time to have Medicare. With that said, you'll be responsible for paying Medicare for each month that you work above SGA, because your Medicare normally comes out of your Social Security check, and you'll be responsible for paying that Medicare once you lose your Social Security check. And they usually bill 3 months at a time. So that can be pretty costly for a lot of people, but it's something to keep in mind. Now, let's say that you're working this really high job. You've done it for 4 years and it's great. You're having a great time, works good, but your disability kicks up and you have to quit, but you've lost your Social Security benefit. What do you do at that point? You can take advantage of something called expedited reinstatement. Within 5 years of your benefits terminating, you can reapply to get that reinstatement. And the benefits for that are, it doesn't take as long to get a decision, but also you get provisional benefits while your application's being reviewed. And as long as you're not working over that SGA, whatever it is, whenever you reapply, then you don't have to pay that back. If you're approved, you begin what's called an initial reinstatement period. And for a lot of people, it's actually really nice, because if you continuously work during that time and you don't get your check, you still have that cushion to fall on. If you do find yourself getting work during this period. The reason we call it a 24-month initial reinstatement period is because Social Security is looking at 24 months where you're not working above SGA. So once you've hit 24 months, doesn't have to be consecutive, of not working above SGA after this reinstatement period, your benefits start completely over. You get your trial work period, you get your extended period of eligibility, you get all of that back as if you just started. Now, there is a risk. If you're not approved, you will likely lose your Medicare, because at that point, Social Security says you're no longer disabled. So what I recommend to people is, before you're an expedited reinstatement, make sure you're not working above SGA, whatever it is at that time, because if you are and you reapply, then Social Security is going to say you're not disabled anymore. And that, if Medicare is something you really need, that's something you need to be wary of. Now, I mean, if you're not working and you still have your disability, then it's not really so much of a concern. But if you are working and you're making more than that, then that's something to be very aware of. So yesterday, we talked about things called impairment-related work expenses. And these expenses are items that you, as a person with a disability, have to pay for that other people who don't have disabilities don't have to pay for. So for example, attendant help, medications, transportation, if you need to take paratransit or somebody has to drive you. You can't take the public bus or drive your own car. It's more if somebody has to take you there because of your disability, or if you have to pay for other equipment because of your disability. You can report that to Social Security and they won't count whatever that is for your earnings. So for SSDI, that also applies. Now, this is mostly for if you find yourself working above SGA. So let's say that you made $1,410 in a month. SGA for people who aren't blind is $1,310. You would lose your benefit in that situation. However, if you have like $100 of items that you've had to pay for because of your disability, be that medication, attendant expenses, what have you, you can report that to Social Security, and whatever it is that you spent will not be counted on your earnings. So So yeah, if you spend like 105 bucks, that puts you under SGA, you get your check. And it's really important for people who may have worked like $20 or $30 over SGA and would lose their benefit or not get it for that month. This can be of great help to you. Another thing that is important too, if you take vacation or sick time or holiday time, basically you get paid for time you're not working, then that doesn't count against you either. So let's say you're working and you take a vacation, and I've seen a lot of people take vacations on months where they're going to get 3 paychecks. So let's say you take a vacation for a week, you go out to Vegas, you have a great time. You don't use your ABLE account, for those of you who were there yesterday, on Vegas expenses, but you have a good time with your family, do whatever it is you want to do. And you get paid for that because you're taking sick time at your job. The money that you've gotten from that doesn't count either. Social Security only cares about how much you've earned because of your work, not because you got some benefit from your job. If you're making commission, that's related to your work, or getting a bonus because of your work, that matters. But if you're getting a holiday bonus because your employer's feeling particularly nice to everybody, then there's a chance that wouldn't count because it's not based off your actual work. But holiday and sick time, if you need to take that, take it. Because, especially if you're in a month where you're going to make 3 paychecks, take the time off, give yourself a little bit of breathing room, and take time off, because we're all human beings and we need to take time off. So do I have any questions?
They'll all pop up at the very end. Everybody will start thinking about them. I forgot mine, so I'll have to type it in the chat when I remember.
Okay, sounds good.
Jonathan, I was going to ask, are you going to go over how would one apply for SSDI?
So I don't handle the application process on my end for people who are trying to apply. My job is to help people understand who are already on it. How to, make sure that you still keep your benefit. With that said, you can apply online on Social Security's website.
Okay. Yeah, I'll just vouching for potentially my brother. He just wants to get some info on SSDI, so I was curious.
Yes. So if you're looking to apply, you can do that online. Social Security, when they're calculating disability, and I think this is also important to us as well, the way that Social Security determines that you have a disability, they have a specific definition. And that would be that you are not working or unable to work because of your disability, and that disability is going to last you long, at least 12 months or result in your death. So, and if you're part of the way they calculate it is if you're making that SGA I told you about, that 1310. So if you're not making that and you have a disability, then Social Security will look at that and say, okay, you have a disability. Sheila, do you have a question?
I do. So you were discussing how the vacation part. So how, I mean, most people don't know all these benefits. I've been working for, I'm not sure how many years, on SSDI. And I know later you're going to talk about payback.
Yeah, we'll talk about overpayments. It's actually my next slide.
Okay. Yeah, because that's another thing that's trying to figure out. Is there a link or something that we could refer people to when they call about this? I know we can tell them about the ticket to work, but it doesn't go into the detail of everything you're going into.
So there's a lot of Social Security's publications. They don't go into that full of detail either, though I can certainly share some with you because I think it's better than having no information at all. But there are a lot of little things that Social Security, they just don't necessarily cover because it's just because there's so much to the program. But I can share with you some of the publications that they do have for people who are seeking to work, just so that you have them, and I can email that to you. I'll need to look for them.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
So yeah, but yeah, there are a lot of little things that people don't realize, and I especially think it's important to learn all of these things because with that in mind, especially if you get an overpayment letter, which we'll talk about in a little bit, if you need to contest that overpayment by reporting some of these impairment-related work expenses or reporting sick and holiday time, then that will give you a much stronger case. So with that said, BWEs, for those of you who were here yesterday, the blind work expenses, the taxes, the meals consumed at work, all of that, that does not apply for SSDI. So the only things that do apply are specifically impairment related work expenses. So anything that was in, we talked about meals consumed at work for SSI, federal, state, local taxes, union fees, all of that. None of that applies here for SSDI, just impairment related work expenses like transportation or your medications or anything of that nature. So, okay, overpayments. I'm not going to ask here who's gone through an overpayment, but if you have gone through an overpayment, you know how scary getting that letter is. Usually it's a letter that Social Security sends you that says you have to pay back, usually for a lot of people, thousands or tens of thousands of dollars, and you have 10 days to pay it back. That's scary. The reason why Social Security says you owe an overpayment, which is basically an overpayment's money that you did get from Social Security, but Social Security says, no, you never should have gotten that money. So there are a lot of reasons for it. You could have worked and not reported to Social Security. Social Security's own calculations may have been off. If you're on SSI and you were getting resources from family that you didn't report, that counts against you. Under SSDI, it doesn't, but under SSI, it does. Because under SSI, the two things you're supposed to use that for is food and shelter only. So if anyone's giving you money for those, then Social Security is like, I don't need to pay you. It's just being completely honest about it. Like any unearned income that you get is taken 1-to-1. So after like the first $20, then they start taking $1 for everything that you get after that. That's not earned. So anyway, these are all things that can count against you. And under SSDI, if you have just SSDI, they can keep your entire check. Under SSI, they can only take 10% of your full check. So last year it was $78.30. This year it's $79.40 that they can take from your check in total. There are forms that you can use to appeal. There's a very short form called an SSA 561 request for reconsideration. It's very short and it's meant for people who believe Social Security is at fault for miscalculating the overpayment. However, if you need a waiver, if you feel like this money is too much and you can't pay it, or if you're on SSDI and you need to have your Social Security check, even though you understand that you owe that money, you can tell Social Security, hey, I know I owe this money, but instead of collecting my entire check, can you collect maybe $50 a month? I've seen people get away with Social Security only collecting $10 a month, which obviously, $10 matters, but it's better than collecting like thousands of dollars back. So there are options available for you. So how do you avoid overpayments? You report all income and changes to Social Security. SSI and SSDI do have different rules, though I generally tell people report them every single month. Just do both of them every single month. Save yourself the trouble that could come later on. and you have to report your earnings separately. So for those of you who are dual beneficiaries, the rules for SSI and SSDI apply to you. They apply for both. Just that your SSI rules, sorry, I've got a stutter. Your SSI rules, they are for your SSI check, and your SSDI rules are for the SSDI check, but you have to follow both rules. So if you receive 2 checks from Social Security, this is worth keeping in mind. And if you have to report for both, then you need to report twice. So for SSI, you can report at your local office. They do have a telephone wage reporting service, 1-866-772-0953. There's also an app from Social Security that you can use to report your earnings as well. Some people have a little trouble with it, but it's only for SSI. It's not for SSDI. So if you have SSDI, you can also report in person, or you can report via my Social Security account. So right now during COVID, what I've told clients the best thing to do is to make 2 copies of your benefits information, send that via certified mail to your local office, get a return receipt back, mail both copies, one for SSI, the other for SSDI, so that both can be processed accordingly. Pre-COVID, what I would tell people to do is just bring 2 copies to their local office, but the offices still are not open because of COVID. So in that case, you send 2 certified copies to your local Social Security office, get those return receipts back so that Social Security, so that you know Social Security received it. And that way, if Social Security is saying, well, we didn't get your page stub, so you owe us money, you have something you can contest that with. Document, 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 document. I cannot stress this enough. Anytime you call Social Security, get a name, get the phone, get the date, write down notes, take good notes so you know who you talked to. If you have those receipts from Social Security, put them in a safe place. If you're able to turn in your work earnings directly to the office, get them to date stamp a copy back so that you know they got it and they know that that they got it. Like, it is really, really important to document everything with this, because what we don't want is for Social Security to come and say that they've lost some of your paperwork, because at that point it would be your word against theirs. And I want to make sure that y'all don't have to deal with this hassle at all. Any questions?
I have a question. How does the pandemic payments play into all of this? What does that look like?
So, the stimulus check?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a very good question. Stimulus checks do not count as resources for up to a year after keeping them. So let's say you're putting those stimulus checks in savings, then they don't count as resources for a year. Now, if you have SSDI, the program we're talking about today, there's no effect. You can keep them, do whatever you want, nothing to worry about at all. Under SSI, you can still keep them. Just bear in mind that after a year, they will be counted as resources. So for those of you who were here yesterday, we were talking about ABLE accounts, and that's a very good place to put your stimulus so it doesn't count against you as a resource.
I have another question. What about, because of the pandemic, you couldn't work and I was able to get unemployment. How does that work with all of that?
Also a very good question. Under SSI, that counts against you. The one program we talked about yesterday, that does count against you because Social Security, again, that's the SSI is the payer of last resort. So if you're getting money from any other source, then it does count against you. However, under SSDI, the program we're talking about today, no effect. Social Security only cares about money that you've earned for SSDI. So if you're dual eligible, then it'll affect the SSI side, but not the SSDI side. So whenever a situation comes up, I've got a client calling saying, should I get employment? If they're on SSDI, I absolutely recommend that they do. Whereas under SSI, I say, well, hold on now.
Right, because when I began to get to work program, one of the things they did give me was the unemployment as part of it. But of course, I got lost in the system, but they did initiate all that.
Right. So yeah, under SSDI, there is no effect on your benefits because it's not money that you earned by working. So yes, you can have both. So any other questions?
Jonathan, I just want to make a statement that happened to me, and I wish somebody would have been around to tell me about it. But when I first got on SSDI, they said, oh, you're allowed to make, it was way back when, $700 or whatever it was. But it's accumulative over a year. And so I was one of those people that made 3 paychecks every, depending on the month.
Right.
And so I was not aware of the vacation part. And so what I did was the months that it was 3, I kind of just wiggled the schedule so that they would break the paycheck up. And it's still, those months I went over and I was like, oh, but at the end of the year, I'm still okay. Well, 10 years later, they came back and they're like, oh yeah, no, this month you went over, this month you went over. And then I didn't realize it until they just totally cut it off. And I'm like, why am I not getting my check? So it is not accumulative. It is per month, and don't make 1 penny over.
Well, and if you do find yourself making a penny over, that's where you can report your impairment related work expenses.
And nobody told me about that either.
Yeah. So just a little, like, this is more for your information, because I've had clients call Social Security all the time and they're given completely different information from what I'm telling you. Most of the people at Social Security offices are really, really good at retirement. They are not good at disability. There are 2 people, generally speaking, in every office that are kind of the keepers of those 2 benefits, the 2 disability benefits. For SSI, it's the Title 16 claims rep, and for SSDI, it's the work incentive liaison. So if you find yourself needing to call Social Security's office, those are the people that you want to ask for. And I'll repeat that again. For SSI, the program we talked about yesterday, it's the Title 16 claims rep. For SSDI, it's the work incentive liaison. And a lot of some of the desk officers do know more about disability. Some of them really do not. So I've heard many a horror story over what Social Security told them that just was not true. And, I'm not here to criticize Social Security or do whatever it is that, because that's not why I'm here. But what I am here to do is to help you try to make life easier while you're working and getting benefits. And I know, go ahead.
I'm sorry, that's another general question. So Social Security does not give you a grace period if you miss a day or 2 when it comes to the time to report your benefits?
So, when it comes time to report your benefits, it's less that they don't give you a grace period and more that the longer you wait, the longer it's going to take for them to process your benefit or process your wages.
Okay, right.
So it's like you can report your wages late, but it's going to take longer for them to process. And that's how you run into the risk of an overpayment.
Okay, gotcha.
So Yeah, and I know a lot of these rules are confusing. You know, I've made this joke that sometimes it feels like the rules are made by garden gnomes in Social Security's basement. But that's why I think it's very clear to make sure that they're understood, because sometimes it is complicated. However, if you do play your cards right, and then you can really make a lot more money than you may have thought before. And unlike SSI, the one we talked about yesterday, SSDI, you may find that your work earnings plus your check is more than what your work earnings would be without your Social Security check. So that's something to keep in mind too. Any other questions? Okay. It's going a lot quicker than I thought it would. So next is rep payees. Rep payee is someone who is appointed to receive to basically handle your SSDI or SSI benefits, and their job is to only pay for your needs and to save money for current needs and keep records of your expenses. Being an authorized representative, i.e. someone who's agreed to speak with Social Security on your behalf, power of attorney, joint bank account, not the same as being a payee. So you have to apply, if you find yourself needing a payee, the person you want to do that, or if you go to like a private entity, because some do provide rep payee programs, then that will have to be applied for and appointed by SSA. Not too necessarily important, but if that's something that you have, then, or not important to like the work concept of it, but if it's something that you have, then this is the duties of a rep payee. All right, so Social Security resources. One way to figure, if you've worked while receiving SSDI and you don't know where you are in the process, you can apply for what's called a benefits planning query. And what this is, it's a form from Social Security that basically shows a snapshot of what Social Security views as the earnings you've reported and what type of benefit you have and all of that. And it can be really useful if you're trying to figure out if Social Security has your records correctly, and also where you are in this SSDI timeline, whether you're in your trial work period, your extended period of eligibility, all of that. So that's really important. If you want to ask Social Security for that, you can. If you do call Social Security and ask for it, what you'll need to tell them is it's in their kitchen sink icon on their computer. If they tell you, I don't know what you're talking about, then it's going to be in their kitchen sink icon on their computers. And they'll know what that is. They'll print out your BPQI and mail it to you. The Social Security Red Book, we discussed this a little bit yesterday, but what it is it's on Social Security's website. It's a general reference for all of the things that we've talked about today, and can give you some more examples of different impairment-related work expenses, other incentives. One more that I'll get through this slide and then we'll talk a little bit more about it. The SSA, my SSA account, this ssa.gov/my account. This right here is really important because if you're reporting SSDI work earnings, you need to have that. Also, you can print a benefit verification letter, check your earnings, get replacement Medicare card, and do a whole lot of other things. And then we talked a little bit about the work incentive liaison, which is for SSDI, and that can be really useful. So one more thing, and I feel like it's important particularly to this group that just popped in my head that I didn't really discuss, is it's a subsidy/special condition. I'm actually about to pull up the form. Oops. All right, I'm going to pull that form up right now. It is, what this is for people who are working, but you're receiving some sort of reasonable accommodation that this isn't me saying that you're not working at your job. No, it's me saying that if you have help at your job, that that means that you do a little bit less than everybody else does, then this is something that you can report to Social Security as something that happens. And I'm about to share that form with you now. Let's see here. There we go. Okay. So here you can see the Social Security form. So this form, it goes over for subsidy. It's mostly for people under SSDI as opposed to SSI, because it's money that doesn't count towards that SGA. I know it says SSI on here, but generally speaking, the subsidy really is for this retirement survivors and disability insurance. So it's SSDI. And I'm about to go into that, why that is. So here it is. Now, this is something for your employer to fill out. And so if you're doing less than other people, though you still do a great job, it's just you're doing a little less work than other people, you can report that as a special condition or a subsidy. So you can see when they're talking about usual duties, special assistance, and the kinds of special assistance that may apply to you, whether you have fewer duties than your other employees, irregular hours, special transportation to and from work, less hours if you need to have more breaks than other people, extra help, special equipment, so on and so forth. Then you can report that as a subsidy, which I'm going to go to here. So basically what this means is your productivity the same as everybody else's, or if it can go down to 50% or less. And what this means is whatever this amount is, the rest, they don't count as earnings. So for example, let's say you're making $1,300 a month, but your productivity is about 90% of everybody else's. Then that means they won't count 130 or 10% of your earnings for that month, for those months. So it can be really powerful if you find yourself in this program, and ultimately you can get up to 50% subsidy. So again, we're going to use that 1,300 as, or 1,300, then that means they only count $650 at that point. So that's really, this is really helpful. So anyway, let me get back to this slide and we'll go back. But I really wanted to share that with you all because I felt like that could be really helpful, particularly for this group.
Jonathan.
Yes.
So if your employer fills that form out, does that affect your employer in any way?
No, that's a good question. No, it doesn't. It's not, they don't have to report it to the IRS at all. So there's no effect on your employer. It's only for Social Security's benefit as it pertains to you.
So if you have a good relationship with your employer, that could be very beneficial to you.
Yes, that can be really beneficial. So yeah, if you that can help you earn even more money. And that really, again, that can really help out. So yeah, hopefully this helps give you all some ideas as to how much you can earn and still keep your benefit. And yeah, it's definitely, subsidies and special conditions are really, really powerful work incentive. They don't always apply in every situation that I work under, but if you do find yourself needing more help or special equipment, then I feel like that could really, really be useful. So last slide. This is our contact information. We talked a little about this yesterday, but you can reach us at 1-800-252-9108. If you're a current client, 1-800-315-3876. Toll-free statewide video phone, 866-362-2851. And our intake at intake.drtx.org. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions that you all have. I figured there might be more questions, so that's why this one was shorter, but I can take some questions.
What do you mean by intake? I'm totally ignorant to that.
So intake is for people who are interested in opening up a new case with us. If they don't have a case open now, but they would like to open one for various reasons, whether that's an issue with their employment, more information over what we talked about today, issues with healthcare, childcare, any sort of disability related issues, that would be the number to call.
Okay, makes sense. Also, I didn't even know that all these were options. So thank you.
Yeah, of course. That's why I'm here to help provide all sorts of options for you and everybody.
You had said yesterday about the Ticket to Work program should not take a long time.
Yes.
In general, what does that look like for someone who's never even considered it before? Once it becomes a viable option to do it, what does it mean? What is it? And what a person have to go through in order to get the Ticket to Work program?
So in regards to length, it really depends on the program you sign up for. But even then it shouldn't take, like, whenever you start doing, for example, vocational rehab, which is a service that you are entitled to as someone who's receiving SSI and SSDI.
What's the difference between vocational rehab and the Ticket to Work? Is there a difference?
So vocational rehab is a program under Ticket to Work.
Okay.
So
you did all of that? What's the process in order to what does the Ticket to Work program look like for a person that's disabled? You said you just mentioned something about I forgot already. The training and working. What is that? And would you get paid while you're getting trained? What does that look like?
So under Ticket to Work, so it's a program that, again, it's an all-encompassing umbrella of programs. The Ticket to Work is sort of the like overarching umbrella of it. They're the ones that sort of say, okay, these are the programs you can do under Ticket to Work. So for example, my program is also under Ticket to Work, along with the vocational rehab, employment networks, and the work incentives planning and assistance program.
But vocational rehab is non-paying. While you're going through this process, you're not being paid, right? Or are you?
So while you're going through this process, I mean, Social Security doesn't necessarily pay you extra for going through it.
Right.
It's just, again, it's all based on you getting employed and your employer pays you.
Okay. Okay. And so you say Ticket to Work. Does that mean like if I want to get a job at HEB or Walmart, I go through you guys to get that done? What if I want to be the governor's assistant manager or want to be a reporter or something?
So that would be under vocational rehab if you don't have the training or if you want to get the training for that specifically. What vocational rehab can do is they can help with getting you back to school and helping you get the resources that you need in order to do it. So whether that's a college degree or anything of that nature, they can assist you with that.
Really?
And, once you go through, because they do give everybody a smattering of evaluations and tests to make sure that that's a position you can complete. And then from there, you would sign what's called an individualized plan for employment, which would start your services. Sheila, what can I help you with?
So I am on SSDI and I've decided I want to go back to work.
Okay.
Do I have to go on the Ticket to Work?
No. You don't have to. Go ahead.
Why or why not? What's
the difference? Is there a pro and con?
Right.
So going through the Ticket to Work umbrella, these are for people who need sort of an extra push to help them get to a place of employment. The benefit is that you don't have to go through a medical disability review while you're getting these services. But outside of that, if you can find a job on your own, you are absolutely welcome to work. And that has the same effect as any other job, whether you got it under Ticket to Work or not.
So this is
That
Dan.
confuses me. I'm
This is
confused.
Dan. So one of my understandings about the Ticket to Work program was that if you got involved with the Ticket to Work program, similar to what you were saying, but if your injury was came back or your illness came back, you didn't necessarily have to reapply to get back into disability again, correct?
So yeah, it depends on how much work you've completed before your injury or disability progressed. So let's say, for example, under this SSDI program, we'll use as an example, you've worked for a year and you've used all your trial work months, but you're still in that extended period of eligibility. You would, and your injury kicked up and you can't work anymore. Then yes, you would still be receiving your benefit without any sort of additional input on your part, aside from telling Social Security you stopped working.
Right. Whereas if you didn't go through the Ticket to Work program, you would end up having to reapply for it.
No, so even if you didn't get a job under Ticket to Work, whether you did or not, those rules would still be the same. The only difference insofar as your benefit is concerned is that you wouldn't more than likely not need to go through a medical disability review, which is Social Security screening you to see if you're still disabled or not, still considered disabled or not. Then you wouldn't need to go through that. Then you wouldn't need to do the medical review while you're getting services. But outside of that, everything else is the same.
And the fact that the Ticket to Work does assign, so somebody who's newly disabled, most of the time you're having to reevaluate what you can and cannot do any longer, because you usually cannot go back to your old job. So with the Ticket to Work, it does provide a service that helps you retrain or find something you can do, helps you get assistance in getting equipment that you need to return back to work.
I think that's a good answer because I was wondering the same thing. What's the benefit? But that's exactly what I would wonder. I think that's great.
Yeah, so there are definitely benefits to Ticket to Work, especially if you're needing resources to get to a job that you actually want to do. If there's some sort of big overarching goal that you want to do, then Ticket to Work can be really helpful for that, or specifically vocational rehab. The employment networks are meant for people who just need a little bit of assistance, generally speaking, in working. But the vocational rehab for people who want to completely change your career path, then that can be really helpful.
And to clarify, people on SSI, could they utilize this program or no?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, okay.
Yes. Ticket to Work is both for SSI and SSDI.
All right.
Okay, I'm going to be a little selfish here, Jonathan. So I want to be a lobbyist one day, but I have no experience in it. Would it be possible to actually go into that career with the right training because of Ticket to Work?
I mean, I can't speak on like a specific career path.
Example, that's just an example.
Yeah, but like if you go to vocational rehab and say, hey, this is my employment goal, I want to be a lobbyist, then what vocational rehab is supposed to do is you go through your battery of tests to make sure it's something you can do, and you come up with a individualized plan for employment, an IPE that'll tell you what you have to do and what vocational rehab will pay for, be it paying for school or otherwise. So let's say you need a master's degree in political science. Then that will be what Social Security can, or not Social Security, what the vocational rehab can help pay for.
You heard that, guys, right?
Or, let's say you want to go to a trade school and you want to learn a trade, then that's what vocational rehab can pay for. Or if you want to be a college professor or a lawyer or a doctor or anything like that, then that's something that they can help you pay for.
Where's the first step in that? Like the Texas workforce, your
Yes.
counselor is a person that is supposed to help you out?
Yes. And if you're having issues with that office, then call us.
So Jonathan, if a person is on a ticket to work, would that because they're going to be assigned a representative, not necessarily, they may not necessarily be through TWC. They may be like Alamo, I call them headhunters, but
Oh, yeah.
Um,
Alamo
they're-
Employment Agency.
yeah, they're essentially employment agencies or headhunters. So if you've got the ticket to work and you're assigned an employment agency, would they be somebody you would go through, or would you, like, for his particular situation, would he just say, you know what, I want to go straight to TWC?
Yes. So the headhunters, to quote y'all, that sounds like an employment network as opposed to vocational rehab. And you can only get one of the two. Unlike all the other programs in Ticket to Work, you can only get an employment network or TWC.
So
You
there's
can't
an
get-
option? There's an option.
Well, you have to pick one of the two. You can switch from one or the other if you want, but you can't receive both at the same time. So if you want to do Alamo Headhunter Incorporated Esquire, I don't know what the name of there is, but if you wanted to do that, if you want to do Alamo Headhunter people, then you could, but you can't get vocational rehab while you're doing that. Now, with that said, you can leave Alamo Headhunter Incorporated whenever you want. And you just have to call Ticket to Work and say, hey, I'll put the number up in a little bit just so that everybody has it for today's date too. You just call Ticket to Work, say, hey, I'm not feeling this Alamo people. For whatever reason, you may not be feeling them, and they'll take you off. And from there, you can speak with vocational rehab directly.
Outside of your counselor at TWC, is that different or the same thing?
Well, are you referring to the difference between the Alamo people and then
No, if is TWC part of the Ticket to Work?
Yes. They're the vocational rehab program for Texas under Ticket to Work.
Yeah, Andre, you can't have both. So when you sign up for Ticket to Work, you may have had a Alamo Headhunters, whatever, at first, but then if you've switched over to TWC, then you no longer have Alamo Headhunters.
Right.
You can't have both sides of the coin, only one.
I actually went through the process beginning with like some therapy sessions, what I'm possibly able to do and what I'm good at, what I'm not. It was like a whole day long of stuff, plus
Yep.
psychiatry exam. And then they paid for me to have therapy sessions, and all of a sudden it stopped. So I just signed up for Netflix and went back to what I do because I got lost in the system. I have no idea what to do.
So in that case, that is where you call us. If you find yourself lost in the system, then you call us, and we actually have a whole, whether it's an employment network or vocational rehab, we have a whole program that deals with all of that. Specifically on the vocational rehab side, we have our client assistance program, and literally all they do is communicate with vocational rehab to make sure that their job is being done. That's what they do. So yeah, if you do find yourself lost in the system, call us. We will do what we can to see what's going on so that you're not just floating through the ether somewhere trying to work, but not knowing how. Because that sounds really frustrating.
Especially when I want to buy a condo by the Capitol in Austin as a lobbyist.
Yep. So yeah, just call our office. We will see what's going on with your case and whether it's been closed or if another one needs to be open or what's going on. But just give us a call and we can talk. We can talk privately about that.
Okay.
And I'll put my number in the chat if anyone wants to talk privately after this. Well, my number is 214-845-4054. That goes directly to me, no assistance or anything like that.
Dan, it's in chat.
I would have a general question regarding actually the able account. Just to clarify from yesterday. So do you have to be working in order to apply for that or no?
You don't have to be working to apply for an ABLE account. It could actually be helpful if you're, it can be really helpful even outside of that. But yeah, you can open an ABLE account whenever you want.
Okay.
And for those people,
Daniel, with that being said, there is one stipulation with the ABLE account, right, Jonathan, the age.
yes, you have to have been disabled prior to the age. Your disability you must have been considered with a disability prior to the age of 26.
Well, that should be not a problem for me because mine's an infantile disability, so it shouldn't be a problem.
Okay, then yeah, that should be fine. In that case. So
right.
That's the only real stipulation, or that, and you can't open like multiple ABLE accounts in all the states.
Oh yeah, so I'm thinking about my mom. She's also on SSI. She was considered disabled at it's kind of confusing because of her medical history, but I want to say she got SSI in 2011, and but so she wouldn't be considered disabled prior to the age of 26, right? So she couldn't qualify.
Right. If her it's not necessarily when she gets SSI, it's when she has when she's considered disabled.
Okay.
So even if she didn't get SSI at the age of 29, or she got SSI at a younger age, then even then, like if her disability hit at the age of 26 or prior to the age of 26, she could still qualify. So it doesn't matter when you get SSI, it just matters when you're considered disabled.
You just have to have medical documentation stating that you were disabled at that point.
Right.
There are many people who have a congenital disability and have never received their disability benefits. So it's not necessarily that, but for that fact, if anybody is interested, we did have a presentation on the ABLE program. So it is on our website. And so you can go back and view that. We transfer all of our knowledge series into YouTube videos and place them on our website. So they are available to rewatch at later points when you come up. And that's when you'll come up with all your questions. And that's when you'll look back at the phone number that Jonathan has put in chat and call him and say, oh, yes, now here's my question. I did want you, if you would, Jonathan, because I know we have a member or two on here that is under SSI. Would you do just like a short, very brief on the numbers of how much they can make, the 47,000 a year once they, and that, just like a 2-minute quick review of that?
Yeah, I can do that. I'll do that real quick. That's not a problem. So under SSI, which is the program where you're getting $794 a month or similar to that, basic numbers are Here, I'll put it on the screen so that I'll put that particular slide on the screen so that people can reference it. Cool. Let me share my screen here. Hold on, I need to close out of one slideshow. You know, they say one door closes, another window opens. Well, the door's not closing. So bear with me. There we go. Okay, so let me share this slide here. Bear with me as I get this open. Sorry, I'm having some technical difficulties now, so let me, oh, I'm getting it open right now. Okay, there it goes.
Gotta
Okay,
love those war computers.
yep. You know what they say, technical difficulties happen when you least expect it. And
Right.
all right, so let me share this slide here. I'll go back to that slide here for those of you who were not here yesterday, just so we can talk about that. Okay, so if you're on SSI, your first $65 have no effect on your benefit. If you're on SSDI, then the first 20 of your SSDI doesn't count. But if you're not on SSDI, then another 20 of your work earnings don't count as anything. Social Security does not count that as earnings at all. But after that, they take $1 for every 2 that you earn. And under SSI, you'll always end up with more money working than you would otherwise. So are there any questions on that?
Well, overall, after learning, that the main differences between SSI and SSDI, I feel like SSDI folks they get more benefits. They're not as penalized as such as folks that are on SSI. But like you said, SSI is designed for people, or at least it was originally designed for to provide food and shelter, correct? So I
Right.
guess
I
that
mean,
was their intent.
like you can use the money on whatever you want. It's not that Social Security puts a limit on what you can spend that money on. It's just
Right.
that the intention of the program is to pay for food and shelter, and that's it. And that's why they give people such a little amount compared to the other program, at least.
Yeah, and SSI benefits are much. I have to say I don't agree with the SSDI.
I believe SSI is it's perpetual. So if you find yourself using it, then it should not be an issue. But if you do find yourself, again, especially for some of these HCS waivers, which is very, what's the word I'm looking for? Very precarious for a lot of people because there is such a long wait time. Even if you were to find yourself in danger of losing it, then what you could do is go on the Medicaid buy-in program, which would preserve your spot. And you can make a lot more. And if you find yourself making even over that 47, you can make a lot more under that that Medicaid buy-in and still keep that waiver, because there are things that the waivers cover that aren't necessarily covered by regular health insurance.
Okay. Are there any other questions pertaining to his talk? Okay,
Jonathan, thank you so much for your time, man. We really appreciate that because you had some really good responses and answers to what we are just out there in the world trying to figure it out. So we appreciate the time you took to explain what we need. It's really beneficial to us. Thank you.
Of course. That's why I'm here to help. That's why I'm here to answer any of the questions you may have. So, and I appreciate also everybody's questions. I like having talkative groups who have a lot of questions to ask because I really, this is all really complicated. I get paid to do this and it is very complicated. So even for me. So I'm always happy to hear that a lot of people have questions because it means that you're not wondering you're not wondering what it is that you need. Like, that's why I put my number here in case any other questions come up after this presentation, or if you want to talk privately, I'm here. So anyway, it was a pleasure hanging out with all of you again today. And if you all need me, my number is in the chat. Call me if you need help, or if I need to, if there's something that I feel like needs to be referred to intake, I can tell you that too. But if it's a question that I can answer, I'm happy to answer it for you.
yes, and we do want to thank Jonathan and Disability Rights of Texas. I also want to mention, if you guys have friends or family that are in other states, disability rights is all over the United States. Each state has, I think every state, right?
Every state, U.S. territory, and one Native American consortium has a protection and advocacy agency in their state. So we do all the P&A stuff that has been appointed to us by Congress here in Texas, but each state has one, and there's one in the Native American consortium. So yeah, everywhere that is, under the US umbrella has one.
So if you have friends or family or somebody in a different state, and you're talking about this program, just keep in mind that they have the same thing there. They may not have a Jonathan, but
That's so kind. I appreciate it.
so, okay, Jonathan, thank you again. You've given us more time than we've asked.
Yeah, it's been great.
And lots of great information.
I'm glad to be of assistance to everybody. And if you need me, my number's in the chat. It's 214-845-4054. Otherwise, take care. Have a good rest of your week. And hopefully this information helps you find work.
Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah.
All right. Bye-bye, everybody.
Take care.